Do you have a dress pattern that you love, that you know fits you, that has buttons going from the top to the bottom? Well, if you wanted to keep using that pattern in a simple way, you can remove that button band and just cut the front of the fold. Very easy adjustment, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that with two dress patterns in the same fabric, so keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina. This is Lifting Pins and Needles, a channel all about sewing, limitless sewing, and boy do I have limitless sewing for you today. Welcome if you're always joining in, and if you're new to the channel and you love to sew, you will find a lot of sewing content. It is my goal that with every single video on this channel there is something very practical that you can take away for your own sewing, from my sewing room to yours. As I've mentioned that both dresses are in the same fabric, you might be thinking, why would she make herself two dresses in the same fabric? Well, I didn't. I made one for my mum and one for myself in the same fabric so that we can twin. This is a project I made when my mum was here visiting me, and I made her the lyric dress from Love Notions, and I made myself the Holyoke dress from Cashmerette. Both are patterns I have already used. I made the lyric dress for my mum, knew the fit. I've made the Cashmerette for myself as well. For both of them, we love the bodice, we love the fit. We just don't want those buttons there. We want the fronts on the fold. I'm going to show you some pictures so you can see what they look like, so you can have an idea of what we're trying to achieve when we hop into Up Close and So Personal. So what you're gonna see in Up Close and So Personal is how to eliminate the button overlap on any bodice and the skirt, the pattern layout, and considerations on lining. For the lining, I am focusing on mum's dress, on the lyric dress, and how I line that one. There is one aspect that you'll see a very brief overview of that I'm not going to be touching on for this video because I don't want to overload the content. I think what I'm showing you today is enough for this video. And so what you are not going to be seeing me deep dive into for this video is how to draft pencil skirt that will match these two bodices. That can come at a later date, and what we're focusing on today is eliminating that button band. This is the center front bodice for the Holyoke dress, and I have another one that I copied just to have both so you can understand what I'm talking about. There's a notch there that marks where the fold line is for you to do your button placket, so that is where that gets folded. These buttonholes and button placement references, that is actually the center of the front dress. When you make your dress and you're ready to actually put on the buttonholes and wear this, what this will do is that this will overlap, and you can see how the blue line from one side meets the other line from the other side, and that is that overlap that happens so that the button band can work, you know. But what if you don't want the buttons, you like the fit of the bodice, but you just want a simple bodice and you just want it to be one whole front that you cut on the fold? Then the buttonholes and button reference becomes the center of the bodice. So that is the new pattern piece. You don't even have to draft another one. All you have to do is find the markings for the buttonholes on whatever pattern you're using that has this overlap for the buttons. And then now this becomes the center, and you would just put it straight on the fold. Now what I have here is the top of the center front skirt that matches this bodice, because the Holyoke is buttoned from the top to the bottom, and I've drawn the same lines here. The red line is the original line where you would fold if you're making the original version, but inwards you will find the button references too that match the same as the bodice. So that blue line there, you would just fold your skirt piece all along where the button markings are, the center of these, and then you would just put this on the fold, and then this would be your new front piece. So it's just a matter of finding the references for the pattern that you're using. It can be any pattern, finding where those buttonholes are supposed to be, that is the center of the bodice, folding that back and placing it on the fold. And the same with the skirt, and voila, you will have a much simple dress. Now, because the closures on the front are gone, you need to see if the style is fitted, that you need to have some sort of other way to get into your dress, like a zipper somewhere else. In this case, the Holyoke has a lot of ease around the waist. I think I can just slip into it without adding anything else. This is the front bodice piece for the Lyric, and I'm going to do the slight fold to modify the bodice, the same as I did to the Holyoke. This pattern has a separate pattern piece that is the interfacing. So this is what you would cut out of interfacing to fuse onto there. And on this pattern piece is that the buttons are marked, as you can see. So I had to do an extra step and just overlay this there, and that's how I had to transfer those button markings onto here, onto the bodice itself, because that's where I need them to be in order to determine that that is the center of the bodice, and then fold away there, and then that would be the center of my bodice that I would place on the fold on fabric. And now, taking the marks I have made on my bodice, the blue lines there, I have continued them with the skirt piece. This is the skirt that would go attached to there, and that originally you would fold on the red line that you see there, so that you would have the overlap for the buttons, because we're trying to get rid of that. It will be folded there on the button reference on the center there. So I have just continued that same line, and that will continue all the way to the bottom of the skirt, and you would fold there and place your front on the fold. Because the Lyric dress is a fitted dress, it's got darts everywhere, I can't just slip that over the head. So the back, that is where the modification will be, very slight. This is supposed to be on the fold, so that fold line there, I would place it on fabric and then add there. Add seam allowance so that a center back zipper could be installed, and I would do the same to the skirt. The skirt would not be cut on the fold at the back, it would have a center back seam so that the zipper could continue from the bodice and a little bit down to the skirt. Very simple modification, and it will allow the dress to be put on. This is the layout for my mom's dress. So I'm using the Lyric dress again, the bodice, but I've got the front on the fold. So I calculated where the overlap of the button band was going to be, and from that reference I just calculated that that was the center, you know. So part of the bodice is folded back here, as you can see. I am doing a basic pencil skirt attached to the bodice, so these are the ones I've drafted for her measurements, and those are there. So that's the front, that's the back. I'm doing a zipper on the center back. This back bodice piece is meant to be cut on the fold, so I'm just going to leave seam allowance there to put a zipper in. And that's the sleeve. It's a non-directional print, so I use that space that the arm side usually gives me to put the sleeve in there to save fabric. And so basically I'm getting her dress with 128 centimeters of fabric. Now all the rest down there is going to be my dress. This is my modified Holyoke dress, and I have 120 centimeters here for this one. So this area here is where I'm going to draft the pencil skirt that is going to match that bodice. Whenever I do that modification to a bodice, I actually adapt the pencil skirt to the bodice so it fits the waist of the dress. And where the darts might be, a pencil skirt is usually more fitted around the waist than is a skirt that is attached to the bodice. The bodice of a dress usually has a bit more ease around the waist, wearing ease for, you know, breathing. So I'm very adaptable to how this is drafted, adapted to the bodice. So here I have the two back pieces. This is on the fold. This is the side back that actually doesn't have any shaping incorporated to it. So I can just place them one next to each other, and the seam allowance is included there. That's my center front that I'm putting on the fold. I've folded all this placket bit there out so that I don't have to do that. So it's just on the fold. That's the bodice side front, and those are the two strap pieces. Now in all this area here, I'm not decided yet whether I'm going to do the waistband with the same fabric or I'm going to use a contrast black. I want to show you a little bit of the insides of the dress. So I've got it wrong side up. You can see the V neckline. I've placed the pattern piece on the fold, getting rid of the placket extra bit that comes over here. So that's just on the fold. To stabilize this area, I have used a biggish piece of interfacing there, as you can see, and I have also stay stitched just to make sure. Actually, if you just interface, the stay stitching is a bit redundant, but I'd rather just do it. So I've got the darts there, the bust darts, the waist darts, and this is the pencil skirt that goes attached to the bodice. Now the pencil skirt is based on the one I drafted for her. The only thing I adapt is the width here to match the bodice, and also the darts that go there, I don't draw or sew them in. I pin them onto the bodice and adapt the place where they go to match the waist darts of the dress. So you can see these are the darts for the dress, and the bodice ones come right under there. I always sew and press them in opposite directions so that it makes this seam less bulky. So that's why you can see one going to the side seam for the bodice and the other one pressed towards the center for the skirt. Now for the lining, I've done the exact same thing. This is stretch satin. You can see I've sewn darts there, and these are the waist darts that are actually not darts, they're just pleats. For the dress, it's pressed towards the side seam. Here it's pressed towards the center, and the little pleat for the skirt is pressed towards the side seam, and on the body it's pressed towards the center. So I do them differently so that when these go on top of each other, all these nest together. So the bulk of the lining is going to be on this side here, and then on that side there, and then you don't have that much bulk around the darts. Here's the back part of the dress. You can see I have also done a wide chunk of interfacing there on the top to stabilize. I left quite a hefty seam allowance on the back. The original bodice had you put the back on the fold. All I did was have the fold line of the pattern and then add 2 centimeters of seam allowance so that I could add on this centered zipper. This centered zipper goes beyond the bodice seam, and with the darts I've done exactly the same as the front. So the waist darts have been pressed towards the side seam and the skirt darts have been pressed towards the center. And the exact opposite with the little pleats I've done here for the lining. So the lining, this is just left open, you know, where the zipper goes. Once I've attached everything on there, that will go sewn on by hand onto this area. That's how I like to finish all these dresses with zippers. I've already tried the dress on my mum with pins on the side seams. So all I have to do now is sew the side seams for the main dress, for the lining, and then attach the dress on the round there on the neckline, and I'll show you when I do that. I've sewn the side seams of the lining and the dress, and then I've got right sides together. Basically I have the lining and I put the dress inside it. You can see the dress is sort of inside the lining, right sides together. So I have my side seams, you know, the wrong side there and the wrong side is in there. So I've just matched up the neckline. You can see where the V is. I've got a pin, and with a red friction pen I made a dot there that is visible for me. I'm sure you're not going to see it. And that is exactly where, when I'm sewing, I'll pivot. I'll use my 1/4 inch foot to sew the neckline. That avoids trimming, and you know, you don't need to sew it wider than that if you're going to trim it anyway. At the back, I've got my lining already pressed, the 2 centimeters that I gave myself for seam allowance, the same I used to attach on the centered zipper there that you can see. So I've got that pinned right at the edge there and right at the edge on both sides. I made my zipper longer on the top so it doesn't bother me. So I'm basically going to start sewing there with my 1/4 inch foot. I'm going to go around there, past the shoulders, down to the V, pivot, come up here, past the shoulder again, and then finish right there. And then I'm going to clip, clip, clip all around these curves, turn this right sides out, and then I'm going to do understitching. happy with that V. I have cut all the way to the stitching line but not through it, and I've made some snips there too, all around the neckline. Now I'm going to turn these right sides out and understitch. At the end I'm going to clip off this excess. I'm not interested in doing that right now. I'm going to use my edge foot there to understitch, so I've got all the seam allowance that way tucked in underneath the lining, and this just helps me do a really nice and neat understitching. This will keep the neckline nicely tucked in and not peeping out, so I'm going to do that all the way around. This is one of the sleeves that I've set in, as you can see there, and then the lining, the way I fixed it onto there was just to serge that together when I serged the edge of the sleeve there on that seam allowance. So it's nicely fixed, but actually the lining is not attached to the sleeve and it's not creating extra bulk there on that seam. Here you can see on this side clearly what I mean. Here you see the sleeve in there, that little bit of ease, you know, very easy to set in, already sewn, and I've just pinned the lining around, and I'm just going to go and serge that, and that will attach it, keep it safe without the fraying and also without becoming part of that stitching and making the sleeve super bulky. I tried to make that process as easy to understand as possible. It's just very easy, and that's why I sort of repeated it a few times. I hope that with the example of the two dresses, it's become really clear what to do. I don't have Mum's dress here to show you, of course. That dress is in another country. It's with her in Chile at the moment, but I do have the details to show you. It was perfect to use this stretch cotton satin from minerva.com. It's nice and structured and soft. It has a tiny bit of stretch, not really necessary for the fit or that she needs more ease in it, but for comfort, I think it's a great fabric for this type of fitted sheath dress. So the lyric dress actually has a crossover with a button band that goes from the top all the way down. I didn't do that, and I've shown you already how I did the pattern adjustment. Very easy to do on any dress that has a button band, so that you can simplify and just cut the center on the fold. Now you can see this has a print that is like chevron, and I took great care to have this area of the chevron go right across the chest like it was princess seam. So when she wears it, it looks like there was a seam there, but there actually isn't. I also wanted all that chevron going up to be right in the middle of that V. And when I drafted and cut the pencil skirt to match this bodice, I made sure to keep that design going down there, as you can see. Now, because I cut the front on the fold, she needs to get into this dress somehow. There are no buttons on the front anymore, so I left seam allowance on the back of the bodice. The original bodice is cut on the fold there, so I have a seam there. I left the 2 centimeter seam allowance, about 3/4 of an inch, to put a centered zipper insertion. I also had great care to have this chevron thing going down right there where there would be a princess seam, but there isn't one. What there is though are darts, and they're hidden right there. You can't really see them, the back waist darts. This is the intersection of the zipper. I tried to match it really well. I think like I'm 1 millimeter off, but it's pretty good. I like centered zippers. I prefer them to invisible zippers. I think these are sturdy and they last for years without breaking. The little tab won't get stuck anywhere, and I think it looks really neat if it's done well. You can barely see the stitching line there on my centered insertion. I've specialized in these insertions and I will prefer them any day to an invisible zipper. I'll put them on skirts, pants, anything, and I think they look really good. The dress is fully lined with satin charmeuse with a little bit of stretch. The lining does need to be stretchy to match the main fabric that has a little bit of stretch as well. It's a stretch cotton satin. The lining goes all the way to the bottom there, almost at the hem. The lining pieces are separate for the skirt and the bodice. The bodice for the lining has not got the darts sewn in. I just leave them as pleats. These side bust darts get sewn. There is the neckline. It goes right up to the neckline. There is some understitching there to keep it in place. on the back, the finishing there on the zipper, all that has been hand sewn by my mum. Very neatly, very invisibly, very nice. I prefer to hand sew this over any method. The waist seams there of the lining also match very neatly. Mum is a super fan of the sheath dress. This is just her, this is her style, the style she mostly prefers to wear, and this is an amazing dress. She loves it. I love seeing her in it. It's just a really nice dress. The fabric is perfect for it, and it's a dress she's gonna keep for a long time, as she's kept other me maids. I have sewn her over the years. Here is my mum outside in her sheath dress. The bodice fits exactly the same as the original lyric bodice, and there is a pencil skirt I drafted on. You can see the V neckline is very clean, very neat without the button overlap. That's what we wanted to achieve. You can see how the chevrons look really striking on this type of design. You need a simple design for these types of prints, really. And this is a very simple dress with very simple lines, you know, really good for this type of fabric print. It fits amazing on her, she feels great, and this is totally her style. Here is my Holyoke dress. I have made it before with a button band and the original, you know, skirt pieces, and you can see a video on the channel all about this dress, so I'm not going to talk much about it. The difference with this one is that all this front area is just one piece, as you can see. There's no button band, and the reason I wanted to do that was because of the print. If you see these chevrons, they would have really distorted if I'd had an overlap there, and I didn't really want that effect for this fabric. I wanted nice, clean, simple lines with the exact same fit that I already knew and took the time to fit previously, you know. I ended up doing a contrast black waistband all the way around. I think it looks really cool, and that allowed me to have a little bit more fabric to sort of self-line inside a little bit more. So I got both dresses from 2.5 meters of fabric that was sent to me, and that was really fortunate. So I was able to self-line the center front piece, as you can see, and the center back piece. The lateral ones I lined with, you know, stretched satin charmeuse, and the dress is fully lined to the bottom. The hemming has been done with bias tape, and not because it needed to be. This is a straight skirt. It needed to be there to add a bit of length. As I said, I was working with limited amounts of fabric. My mom's dress is longer, like below the knee, because for her style, she will not, you know, take a shorter skirt. I will use my skirts, you know, above the knee. And with using the bias binding at the bottom, I just lose 1/4 inch of the length, and then I have that amount, you know, for the hem, and that is acceptable. To line this, I used the same principles as you would have seen in Mum's dress. I just replicated all the pattern pieces, basically cut out 2 dresses, you know, one in the main, one in the lining. You know, everything's being united at the top on the neckline. All these little shapes have been clipped, and there's understitching everywhere. So basically the same principles apply to both. It's always hard to get myself on frame in this little room, but it's the same fit as a Holyoke. It's the same bodice fit, the same neckline, the same straps, the same fit underneath the arm. You know, it's all the same waistband. And just from underneath the waistband comes a straight skirt that I wanted. I wanted that chevron to stay intact in the center and here on the sides. And this fabric is striking enough to just require a really simple design like this. So I still have the elastic here at the back. Due to that extra ease there, I don't need to have a zipper anywhere. I can just slip it onto myself. And that differs to Mum's one that really does need that center back zipper. Now up close, I just wanted to show you that this looks exactly like it would look if I had the overlap there. It's just one simple neckline now. No gaping, it's just the same thing, only easier, simple, and such an easy adjustment to make.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my. What can I do? Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon. The sun don't rise on the light is gone from me and you.
The goal of this whole video was not only to show you how to get rid of buttons. I mean, buttons are nice, you know, it's a nice feature. They just sometimes don't need to be there. My main goal for the video was actually to inspire you to take another look at patterns you've already made for yourself, that you love the fit of, that you've taken the time to make a muslin, that you know they fit right. They have that button feature, but you can give them another life by just making them more simple and more adequate for other types of fabrics and other types of print where actually the buttons will not really stand out or be a feature. You know, you have a really busy print, having buttons up and down is not really going to add something visual to the piece like when you're making something out of a solid. Reusing the patterns that you already have, that you already know fit you, is not only cost effective because the more times you use a pattern, the cheaper they become, you know, but it's just fun and it just makes you more creative and think a bit more about your sewing. So that was the main goal of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Would you do this, or would you just rather use another bodice that doesn't have the buttons, you know? In my case, I'm super duper happy to go and change up a pattern to get a different look with the same fit, and that is the whole idea about limitless sewing. Don't be limited by what the patterns tell you to do. You know, you can adapt, you can make small changes that are going to have another look, and you're going to be really happy that you've achieved something different with the same pattern that you already have. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another sewing video. Bye!
What can I do?